Hello, my dear friends. I call you learning friends. My name is Benjamin Okwir, a teacher of English, and I would love to share with you that which we expected to be learning from school. But due to this situation, we are learning from home, which is okay. There's no problem with that. All we need is life and your good health. So you're welcome to this lesson. To save our time, I want to share with you something good for us to learn. Sometimes we must have used this English knowingly or unknowingly. But all the same, our consumers, those who listen to us, will always understand. But now we want to make it a little better. We want to look at a structure, part of which you must understand, use of which. You must have used this sentence, this phrase, this structure somewhere, knowingly or unknowingly. But I want to bring to your attention that this word which has some rules that must follow. And we're saying which, as a relative pronoun, is used as an object or subject for things and animals. Remember, which is only used to talk about things or animals. We don't refer it to persons. We cannot say the man which came. That's an abuse. It is an insult. We can say the dog which gave birth. Yeah, the dog is an animal. That's great. But the man is not an animal. In fact, in this aspect, we don't refer to animals, to people. But we refer to things. The book which Jimmy bought. That's correct. Because the book is counted among the things. The dog which gave birth to 5 puppies. Okay, that's correct English. The man which gave money to the teacher. That's not correct. Remember, which is not used in reflection to people, but is used in reflection to objects and things. And animals, I can say objects or things or animals, but not people. I hope that point is noted. That's what this line is telling us. Which as a relative pronoun is used as an object or subject for things and animals. Now I want to explain this. Pronoun. A pronoun is a word used in place of a noun. For example, I can say Jimmy. The word used in place of Jimmy is he. What about Sarah? The word used in place of Sarah is she. I can say, Sarah came here this morning. Then another person can say, she came here this morning. That she is referring to Sarah. He came here this morning. That he is referring to Benjamin for this case. Now, you realize that we are relating this word to another. That's why we're saying relative pronoun. Hope that point is taken. Then we're saying, which as a relative pronoun is used as an object or subject for things and animals. The next line says, when it is used as a subject, it replaces the subject of the relative clause. It replaces the subject of the relative clause, meaning we have more than a clause. A clause is a part of a sentence. A part of a sentence is called a clause. I can say, Jimmy drew a picture. Jimmy drew a picture. It is very nice. It is very nice. Now, these two makes a complete sentence. The first line says, Jimmy drew a picture. Then the next one says, it is very nice. You realize that it is referring to the picture. Now, if I'm asked to write a sentence using which, to join that sentence, you realize that the second sentence, the second phrase which says it is very nice, that it will be replaced by a relative pronoun which. That's what the line is telling us. We're saying when it is used as a subject, it is referring to our which. So we can read as, when which is used as a subject, that which replaces the subject of the relative clause. Let's learn this with the help of the example. We have examples here for you. The story was not true. It was published in the newspaper. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the story. Then you connect to the relative pronoun. Now, the relative clause. Here we have the first statement. The story was not true. Then the second line says, it was published in the newspaper. You realize that we have the first statement saying the story was not true. Then the second line says it was published in the newspaper. Of those two statements, which one is relying on the other? We realize that we have the first statement saying the story was not true. What about it? It was published in the newspaper. What shall we give as our answer? We shall pick the subject, the story, then we join with the with the joining word which. Then what comes after which should be part of a relative clause. And here it is. We have it as it was published. But what is the true thing? What is the main thing about the story was not true? That's the final outcome. It was not true. That's what we're talking about. Then the other one is just to help us tell more about the story. Which story exactly? The one which was published in the newspaper. So we shall say the story which was published in the newspaper was not true. That's how our answer should be. The story which was published in the newspaper was not true. You realize that the main thing we're talking about is the story was not true. We just bring a relative pronoun and a relative clause within the sentence. We shall say the story which was published in the newspaper was not true. I think that example has helped us pick something little. I want to add the next example so that we learn better. For those who have not yet understood, the next example says, the puzzle was solved by Emmanuel. It was very complicated. It was very complicated. We have talked about the puzzle was solved by Emmanuel. What about it? That puzzle was very complicated. Now, if you're asked to join the sentence using which, how shall we put our answer? What are we talking about? We're talking about the puzzle. More information, that puzzle was not true. It was complicated, very complicated. We shall say, what is the main thing right now? The puzzle was solved by Emmanuel. That's the information. What is the major information about it? It was very complicated. So of the two, which one is relying on the other? Let's learn from the example, the answer. We shall say the story which was very complicated. Are you seeing that? The puzzle which was very complicated was solved by Emmanuel. You realize that our first line introduces the story being solved by Emmanuel. This puzzle was solved by Emmanuel. This it is referring to the puzzle. And this it in the second phrase or the second phrase or the second clause is relating to the puzzle, and it is this it that must be replaced by the relative pronoun which. So it means we shall pick the subject and attach to the relative clause. We shall say the puzzle which was very complicated was solved by Emmanuel. That's the answer. The puzzle which was very complicated was solved by Emmanuel. Remember, the first line reads as the puzzle was solved by Emmanuel. That's the major information we're passing out. Yeah? Then this puzzle has more information attached to it. It was very complicated. That one is now our relative clause. Remember, we have two things to learn: a relative clause and the main clause. Our main clause is the puzzle was solved by Emmanuel. Could be like these people are waiting for who will solve this puzzle. This puzzle is very complicated. We are still in the process. This puzzle is very complicated. Oh, finally the puzzle has been solved. We shall say now, it is saying the puzzle was solved by Emmanuel. That's the final thing we are passing out. More information about this: the puzzle was very complicated. So the puzzle being very complicated is now a relative clause which is attached to or connected to the relative pronoun which. So what we need is a subject, connect with the relative pronoun and the relative clause. Then you go back and give us the main information. Was solved by Emmanuel. That's what I'm saying. The puzzle, the story. Oh God, this is my mistake. This word should be the puzzle, not the story. Yeah, this one should be the puzzle, not the story. So we shall say the puzzle, which was very complicated, was solved by Emmanuel. It should read, the puzzle which was very complicated was solved by Emmanuel. That is it. That is it. I can give another sentence. For example, we have the article has been approved by the press secretary. The article has been approved by the press secretary. It explained the president's visit. It explained the president's visit. So, what are we talking about? The article has been approved by the press secretary. Now, in this step, I want to explain something to help you understand best. Here we have the first line saying, the article has been approved finally. Are you seeing that? Then the other one is describing. It explained the president's visit. So you realize that which happened and that which describes. Are we together? That which happened, what happened here? The article has been approved by the press secretary. That's the major thing we're passing out. Then that which explains becomes our relative clause. Our relative clause. And in a relative clause, we have a relative pronoun, it. This it is referring to the subject article. So we shall say the article which, because which must replace this relative pronoun. The article which explained the president's visit has been approved by the press secretary. As simple as that. So your task is to identify what is being talked about. What happened finally? Here it is. The article has been approved by the press secretary. I can give another example. The book got lost. The book was found by the class captain. What are we talking about? We're talking about the book was found by the class captain. What is the final thing? What exactly happened finally? The book was found by the class captain. We shall say the book which got lost was found. That's how it is, friends. Then we have the answer to this, and I'll give you one more example, then we go to our activity. So the answer says, the article which explained the president's visit has been approved by the press secretary. I hope you are taking note of this. And this now gives me a privilege to say that you have got some information about this and you're getting ready to doing the next activity. But before that, I want to review something little. I told you, find out what is the major information, what finally happened. Then which one explained the part of this information we're talking about. Hope you have understood. We have this ruling saying when which is used as the object, it appears to be the object of the sentence. The subjects are different. This when we have more than a subject. Remember the other side we were talking about the book. We're talking about the press paper, I can take it back here. Here we're talking about the article, and this it is referring to the article. We have one subject. But the other part we're looking at when we have more than two subjects, we're saying when which is used as this object, it appears to be the object of the sentence, and here we have different subjects. Examples come. The editorial was not interesting. The chief editor wrote it. Here we have the editorial and the chief editor. Those are two different subjects. And so we shall say, when we're asked to use which, we shall say the editorial which the chief editor wrote was not interesting. Now, for this case, you are supposed to identify the major information out. The editorial was not interesting. Which part is this describing? The chief editor wrote it. This one is describing the editorial which is not interesting, or which was not interesting. So shall say the editorial which the chief editor wrote was not interesting. And still the other bit will help us explain. Remember, this it must be replaced by a relative pronoun which. So it should not appear in our answer. That's the reason. It should not appear in our answer, this it. That's what we're saying. The editorial which the chief editor wrote was not interesting. That's the answer, dear friends. I have the next number to explain to you. The newspaper was expensive. The newspaper was expensive. My father bought it. Here we have two things. We have the newspaper and my father. These are two objects. So we shall say, what exactly are we talking about? We're talking about my father, we're talking about the newspaper. Yes? We are talking about the newspaper. So we shall say, the newspaper which my father bought was expensive. That's how it should appear. The newspaper which my father bought was expensive. Don't say the newspaper which my father bought it. Why? The principle says this pronoun, relative pronoun which, must replace the relative pronoun of the relative clause. It is here. My father bought it. This sentence is relying on the first one. So it is your task to know which phrase, which clause is relying on the other. The one which is relying on the other is what we're calling as relative clause. So it is that one which is connected to which. Then the other information left comes after. That's what I'm saying. The newspaper which my father bought was very expensive. In the first phrase, we have the newspaper was very expensive. Remember, to give our answer, we first pick part of this phrase. And what we pick from there is the subject. Here is the newspaper. That's what we pick. Then other information about this in the first phrase is left, not talked about. We first go to that which relates. So we shall say, the newspaper which my father bought was very expensive. You realize that this part which my father bought is explaining the newspaper. Could be many, but the one the father bought. Hope you have got that, friends. Hope you have got that. That's my desire. My desire is to see you, to hear that you have understood. And you can now use which correctly. Friends, I want to give you this next example. The bouquet de front page was colorful. I saw it. The bouquet de front page was colorful. The bouquet de front page was colorful. I saw it. Now, of the two, which one is relying on the other? You realize that the next phrase is relying on the other. Can I say I saw it as a major sentence, major phrase? No. People will not understand what you have talked about, right? But here I will say the bouquet de front page was colorful. Okay. Then the next part says I saw it. You realize that what we're talking about here is the bouquet de front page. That's what we're talking about. The bouquet de front page is what we're talking about. So we shall pick the bouquet de front page. Connect to the given conjunction which. The bouquet de front page which. Then go to the next phrase, that which relies on this. Then what is there? Remember to replace the pronoun, the relative pronoun, with the word which. Meaning in that answer, we shall not have the pronoun used in the second phrase. This is what we're talking about. This it must not be seen in our answer. Why? This it must be replaced with the relative pronoun which. So we shall end up saying the bouquet de front page which I saw was colorful. That's how it is done, my friends. I love English because it makes us really see this fact quickly. And now I believe with what I've explained, you can do some activity. Ready? Will you do the best? I'll be glad to realize that you've done the best out of your own understanding. The sentence says, join the sentences below using which? Number 1, the newspaper was sold off. It contained interesting cartoons. I love the sentence. The newspaper was sold off. It contained interesting cartoons. I need the answer for that. Use which. Hope you have understood. And the next number says, the house belongs to Kalanzi. It is painted white. Your task is to know what is being talked about majorly and that which is relying to or relating or describing what we're talking about. That which describes what is being talked about is what we call as relative clause. Yes. Then a relative clause is connected. We pick the subject, bring relative clause, bring the relative pronoun, connect to relative clause, then come and pick the main information and end the sentence. I think you've understood. Number 3 says the article was brief. It was published in yesterday's newspaper. Number 4, the brochures were fake. The man gave them to us. Number 5, the column was not printed well. It talks about regional news. Hope you're good to shower the work perfectly and use it even to construct other sentences at home. Show people that you're at school. Show people that you've learned. Hope you've understood, dear friends. That marks the end of our activity. I'll be glad to share with you the correction to this work in the next lesson. Goodbye.